Hello, everyone. Welcome to CE633 Special Topics in School Counseling. I'm Dr. Heidi Henry, and I will be sharing some information with you today to help orient you to this course. In this course, you will dive deeper into some topics you've already learned about throughout the program, such as your role in academic, career, and social emotional supports. However, you'll also be introduced to new information essential to your role as a school counselor, including your role in violence prevention, as well as suicide prevention, assessment, and intervention. Additionally, you will learn about the importance of data in your role as a school counselor and how you can use data to help promote an equitable and just environment for all students. In this video, I will review the course layout and major assignments. Some of the assignments require you to work on them throughout the course or to start arranging partners now to complete the assignments. In this course, we're doing something a little bit different, and we're moving away from discussion boards, and we're going to use some more engaging and dynamic learning activities to really help improve the depth of your learning. So at this stage in the program, you've made it really far, and so you have the basics. And so we really want to do something a little bit more advanced to really take your learning to the next level. So this is really the purpose for this video and why this orientation is necessary to help set you up for success in the class. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and just go through some of the major points in this course. So this, of course, you're used to Moodle. This is kind of what it looks like. So the basic setup is the same. And I will tell you, I'm working from the almost finalized version of the course, so there could be some things slightly different. So just keep that in mind. But for the major things, they're going to be the same. So your course is set up just like every course has been set up throughout this program. You can find your introduction, you can find your syllabus, whoever your instructor is, a little bit information about them, the major assignments here that we're going to go over today, and then you'll start in your week 1, week 2, and so on. And then don't forget, I use announcements, and I know your other instructors will use announcements regularly to communicate with you. So be sure you're checking those, as well as any forums that exist here for you to ask questions about the course and about major assignments. So be sure you're using those as well. So with that, I want to dive into some of the major assignments because, like I said, we are moving away from discussion boards and kind of offering a little bit more variety in this course because you are advanced students at this point in the school counseling program. And so, yeah, this just gives you an opportunity to kind of show that knowledge and everything you've learned throughout this program, and then integrating some new information. So something we're using in this course is what we're calling dynamic dialogue. So in weeks 2, 3, and 5, you'll have a dynamic dialogue. The prompts will be directly related to the content for that week. And we'll go over the rubric, and we'll kind of just go over some basics. So really, the purpose of the dynamic dialogue is so that you can engage in some more in-depth discussion of these topics with another person. So for those of you that have had me in some other classes, you know that I really, in my courses, like to use discussions. And I even did a little survey and a little study with students and found that as long as their schedules allow, it really helps them learn in a different way and learn more in depth. And so by being able to bounce ideas off of one another, they gain multiple perspectives, which is really helpful. And they learn things that they never even thought by just doing discussion boards when they're isolated to kind of their own thinking and their own learning. And so we're going to use this idea formally in this class. And so I'll go over the prompts more specifically, but what you're going to do is you're going to pick a partner of your choice. You can choose the same partner every week. You can switch up partners, whichever works best for all of you, you're welcome to do. And by the Monday of the week the assignment is due, you want to make sure you reach out to your partner, set up a time to meet. So as you can see, one of these assignments is due in week 2. So that's why I wanted you to watch this video now and kind of start thinking about who you might want to partner with and to see what all is expected, because you might need to work ahead on some of them depending on your schedules, just to make sure you have plenty of time to arrange and record these videos. And so I would suggest setting up a time to meet to actually record the dynamic dialogue, but you may want to meet twice. You might want to meet earlier in the week to really kind of talk through what you've learned, your plan for the dialogue, or even before you actually do the recording, and just kind of delegate different roles for the video, and then just making sure you feel confident in your dialogue. That being said, this is a dialogue. It is not a script. So you should not be reading off of anything, but you should more be engaging in conversation with another person, because that's how we know learning really kind of, when you're in conversation, when you're in dialogue with individuals, you can kind of share meaning with the material with one another. And that really enhances your learning. So just to be clear, you're not reading. Doesn't mean you can't kind of note some points that you might want to say in your dialogues beforehand, but you are engaging in a conversation with one another. So you're going to meet via Zoom and you're going to record your dialogue. And you're going to want to make sure whoever's doing the recording, by the end, both of you have access to the link, because you'll record it in your reflection paper. The dialogues are not to be super lengthy dialogues. So just about a 10-minute conversation with your partner following the prompts assigned for each week. Now, you will need to integrate course material. So the materials you're learning about throughout the course, scholarly sources, if you find even extra sources outside of what are assigned that can really help augment your learning, you're welcome and encouraged to include those and other resources as needed. Make sure you're also relating the topics to practical, real-world situations, so things you would encounter as a school counselor, with the underlying foundation of making sure you're promoting cultural diversity, social justice, and equity in schools. And so there is a focus of in this class and in the school counseling profession. So you want to make sure you're touching on each week that you have these dialogues, you're touching on the importance of promoting cultural diversity, social justice, and equity in schools to ensure you're reaching all students. And then you'll write just a small reflection paper, 200 to 275 words, double-spaced, highlighting what you've learned from engaging in this dynamic dialogue, as well as how it will contribute to your work as a school counselor with diverse students. And then again, you're both going to include the link so I can watch the video as well. I will go through these prompts, but really quickly, I just want to bring your attention to the assignment rubric. I know that sometimes we skip over that when we are looking at our assignment. We look at the instructions, but be sure that you are looking at the rubric before you ever record your first dialogue, so you can see how you're being assessed. So you're being assessed on the dialogue itself. Are you engaging in effective communication, critical thinking, self-awareness? Is it the appropriate length, about 10 minutes? You're also being assessed on the depth of your discussion. So are you providing that comprehensive integration of material that's seamlessly into your dialogue? And of course, that scholarly literature, being peer-reviewed articles, textbooks, and the assigned readings from this class to help support your ideas. And then also you're focusing on this diversity and equity application. So are you being able to relate the course topics to practical real-world situations that really have a profound understanding of cultural diversity, social justice, and equity in your role as a school counselor? And then last, you'll be evaluated on your reflection, making sure the link is accessible. That is one of the things that will be just a very small portion of the grade, but it's just important that I'm able to access it. And then also your reflection, just kind of, demonstrating some insightful reflection and understanding of the things that you've learned about, your takeaways from participating in the dynamic dialogue, and how these things will impact your role as a school counselor with diverse students. Okay, so that is how you're going to be assessed. That's the overall structure of the dynamic dialogues. But each week, you'll have a specific prompt. They are all housed here in the pre-course preparation, and you click on them and you shall see what those prompts are. They're very, for the most part, minus one of them, they're very small prompts. However, it's kind of like the major question for that week. So for assignment 2-1, week 2, you're talking about the school counselor's role in violence prevention. So the prompts are, what are potential risk factors and early warning signs among students who may commit gun violence? So you're going to dive in a little bit more into gun violence, and also kind of the typology of people who may become shooters, may participate in gun violence as the perpetrators. You're going to learn a little bit more about those things. And then you're going to answer the question, what is your role as a school counselor in preventing school violence? And then for assignment 3-1, this one, there's a little bit additional reading, so just be aware of that. And again, this is why this video is really important. So you'll have assigned reading in week 3. However, you're also going to have these readings for the purpose of your dynamic dialogue. So I say all that to say, use your time judiciously, right? So week one, you don't have any really major assignment due minus watching this video. So maybe it's a time to get ahead on reading for your weeks. So that might be something to think about. And so week 3 really focuses on the school counselor's role in suicide prevention and intervention. And so with that, there's been, I don't know, I guess controversy is the word I'll use. And you can see these articles are written in 2021, 2022. So they are relatively recent. And essentially, it's the author of your textbook, Stone, going back and forth with some other authors about the school counselor's role in suicide assessment. And the question is, should school counselors be responsible for assessing suicide risk in students? What is their role? And so these articles kind of offer some different perspectives. And so your prompts are, should school counselors be responsible for assessing suicide risk in students? What is the role of a school counselor in suicide assessment and intervention? What are your reactions when you think about being responsible for assessing and intervening with students who are at risk for suicide? Now, this particular prompt is a little bit different. So if you look at the instructions, you're going to review the following articles and make sure you review them in the order, because that's the order they were published in, and they were really responses to one another. And for this dialogue, one partner is going to assume the perspective of Caroline Stone, your author of your textbook, and the other partner will assume the perspective of both Gallo and Wachter Morris. They're co-authors, so they have the same perspective. And you're going to engage in this dialogue with those different perspectives, okay? And so this one's a little bit more in depth. And the reason for that is because it's one of the most important topics as a school counselor that you will learn about. And we always get feedback from our site supervisors and from our students themselves. We wish we had more. Like, we wish we did even more in suicide prevention, suicide assessment, suicide intervention. And so this is really your chance to be able to have up-to-date current perspectives in suicide and engage in a conversation that will hopefully enhance your learning. So that's the week 3 dynamic dialogue. The week 5 dynamic dialogue is revolving around the school counselor's role in helping children and adolescents with substance and mental health disorders. So as you know, school counselors do not offer long-term intensive treatment. However, you still have a role in substance and mental health disorders and helping students and supporting students with those issues. So the prompts for this are, what are some signs of students experiencing substance and mental health issues? And what is the role of the school counselor in supporting students with substance and mental health disorders? So again, you'll engage in a dialogue with that. Now, before you ever start recording, I do want to caution you to check your Zoom settings and see, do you have access to the cloud, or do you only have access to the computer? If you have access to the cloud, you can just record to the cloud and provide that link, that sharing link, as the link for your every dynamic dialogue video. However, if you don't, then what you're going to have to do is follow kind of some of the steps I think you followed in like maybe some early classes, where you record to the computer, but then you have to download that recording, and then you have to upload it to your OneDrive, and then share your OneDrive link, and make sure you make that sharing public or with your instructor so that I have access to it. And so you've done both of these in the past. And so just being sure that you check first so you know which one you're going to have to do, okay? And then there is also an option for you to upload it so that your peers can take a look at your dynamic dialogues and learn from them as well. You are not going to be graded as to whether or not you watch other students. However, it's just one of those things, the more perspectives you see, right, the more you learn. So I highly encourage you to take the time to watch and even offer some supportive comments from your peers. So those are your dynamic dialogues. And like I said, I know that's unique to this course, but at this point, it's really your advanced students. And so I'm really looking forward, and your other instructors who are teaching this course are just looking forward to seeing really some perspectives that are unique, hopefully, on these topics. And then your major assignment for this class is the risk assessment. So like I had said earlier, you are going to be learning about suicide risk and assessing suicide risk. And so I think you can never get enough training on that, if I'm being totally transparent, no matter at what stage you are in your career. And so that is the major assignment for this class, okay? And this one's pretty self-explanatory. So you're going to write a paper that really demonstrates a systematic approach to crisis decision-making that school counselors would use whenever they are encountered with, or whenever they encounter a student that's at risk for suicide or homicide. So you're going to create or even identify a crisis scenario. The only thing I will tell you is if you use any from your own real experience, especially now that you've been maybe in practicum or an internship, you just want to change some of that information to kind of make it a little bit more confidential, a little bit more private. So you kind of mask the demographic data, switch up some things. You can use pseudonyms, you can change the names. And just so that way there's no way to identify who that person is. And so you're going to provide a case. Now, remember, you're providing the case. So you need to look through all these instructions and provide a case that allows you to answer these questions fully. Okay, so provide a description of the student that includes demographic information and symptomology. So symptomology just means, what are their symptoms? What does it look like? What is their history? Maybe it's their symptoms now. Maybe they've had past attempts at suicide. So kind of just providing a little bit of an overview. Symptomatology. I think I said it wrong. And then the next one for you is, or next prompt, identify and describe strategies for assessing the student's level of risk or homicide, then assess the student's level of risk and provide evidence to support this. So first talk about a few strategies that you could use, and then actually assess the student's risk in your case study, okay? And then based on their level of risk, so kind of just give us some indication of where you think their risk is. Is it high? Is it medium? Is it low? And again, as you're learning about suicide risk assessment, you'll learn a little bit more about what those words mean and are they particularly meaningful? That's something you're going to learn about in this class. And then based on the level of risk assessed, describe how you would communicate the assessment process and results with a student, with their parents and guardian, as well as school administrators. So how are you going to report those things? Keep in mind things like developmental levels, parent guardian reactions, even cultural factors. Like if somebody does say they want to kill themselves, in some cultures that carries different weight than in other cultures. So consider the cultural implications of things when you're going to communicate those results, as well as what the student might be kind of feeling or going through. Would it be best if the student told them while you support them? Would it be best if you just told the parents or guardians? But should the student be present? Those are all things to think through, okay, when you're doing this. And then also develop a counseling strategy. So in your role as a school counselor, how will you help support this student? And then list the information of 3 applicable referral resources in your local community that you would use to help the student. So remember, again, you can't do long-term treatment intensive services. That doesn't mean you don't have a role in supporting a student who is identified at risk for suicide or homicide. But usually, in addition to that role, you're offering outside referral sources. So this is the case for you to offer 3 referral sources that you might use if you were to encounter the situation. Okay, and your paper should be written in APA style, 5 to 8 pages in length. That does not include the reference and title page, which you must also want to include, or you also need to include. And then you must include at least 10 scholarly sources throughout your paper. It might seem like a lot, but it's not. I promise you, because you're going to want to look at like once you get into all these bullet points right here, these 3, you're going to have to reference multiple sources for each of them. Now, you can include some of the readings you've already been doing throughout this assignment. So if you think about it, or throughout this course, you already have 4 that you had to do for the dynamic dialogue for one of the weeks. And then you also have additional assigned readings for week 2, week 1, week 3. So you have plenty that you can include. You probably might want to find an additional, maybe one for a counseling strategy. I don't know if the readings will highlight those enough or not, but you have plenty of readings in this class. So it may seem like 10 sources is a lot, but you have probably have 10, honestly, in this course that you could use. So that's why I just don't stress too much about, oh, am I going to be able to find 10 easily? You will be able to. Okay. And then again, As always, make sure you're looking at the assignment rubric. So it's going over, again, the depth of the content, how well you're integrating and how comprehensively you're integrating the scholarly literature. Your process, are you correctly and thoroughly assessing a student's level of risk? And then also, can you identify an appropriate strategy and referral resources? And then just, of course, also being graded on just your writing and your APA. So be sure to use that. Also, just a little tidbit, I might go over this again, but for every resource reading that's provided in this course, there are already correctly formatted APA references. And I will show you that when we go through kind of one of the weeks. And I did that because sometimes for accessibility purposes, we can't write out the reference as it is correctly formatted. And so sometimes students will use those and they're not actually correct. So I wanted to provide all of them correct for you already. So because at this point in the program, I really don't want you to be spending a ton of time thinking about APA formatting, right? Like I want you to be spending more time engaging with the content and with one another. So I provided all of those references for you, and I'll show you that as well. So that is your major assignment for the class. And then one other kind of larger assignment, but it won't be too bad, is because you're working in a group, to do a little bit of a presentation. So again, this is a special topics course. And so one of the reasons school counseling faculty decided to include this course is because we know as school counselors, things are constantly changing and evolving. And so we want to make sure we have a way to integrate the most current, most recent, most up-to-date, relevant kind of events or situations into this course. So for this assignment, you're going to work in groups, and your instructor will let you know the number in each group by the end of the first week. That always changes depending on the number of students in the class. So that's why it's not written here, but they will let you know. And so for this assignment, you will work in groups to identify a story. So a recent story in the news. Okay. So it could be recently, it could be currently, and one that negatively impacts school counselors, K through 12 students, and or K through 12 schools. Okay. Or even P through 12. That's fine. And you will prepare and record a group presentation that addresses the following. So you're going to do two things for this presentation. You're going to actually share the news story. And then based on that news story, you're going to create a presentation that you would deliver to school stakeholders. Okay. And so the purpose of this is so that you all leave with a presentation that you can use in your future practice or even your current practice. Okay. So for the news story, you'll provide a summary of the story. So think about your PowerPoint as like two parts, part one, part two. Part two focuses on the news story. So you're providing a summary of the story, providing a link to the story so I can access it. And that could just be wherever you found it, if it's in the news, if it's legislation, just a link somewhere that I can access it or your other instructors can access it. And then also describe the impact that this might have on school stakeholders. That can include school counselors, that can include students, that can include just in general K through 12 schools. And you'll want to use scholarly sources here to kind of help provide evidence for that impact. And then also discussing advocacy. So what are some advocacy implications in this situation? Or in other words, how can school counselors advocate in this situation? And then you're going to transition into part two by discussing how your news story relates to the topic you're going to present in part two. So in part two, you're taking the role of the school counselor and you're developing a presentation that can be used in the school counseling setting with a population. So that means who you're giving the presentation to. So whether that's students, parents or guardians, teachers, administration, community members, school district administrators. You're going to record a presentation that helps increase awareness and educates the audience, so your chosen population, about the topic or subject you identified in part one in the news story. So here's an example for you. If you find a news story about how New York State will begin prosecuting adolescents as adults on pornography charges whenever they're caught sexting, then the presentation you deliver could be about sexting. It could be delivered to students and their parents or guardians. Or if you find a news story about how a school district in Texas is reducing the number of school counselors in each building, and replacing them with college and career focused counselors. You could do a presentation on the role of the school counselor in social emotional learning and its importance. And you could deliver this to school administrators or superintendents. And you'll want to use scholarly sources to help guide your information, but remember, this is not a research presentation. This is an educational presentation that you are delivering to identified school stakeholders or your population that you identify, okay? So it should be tailored to that population and engaging for that population. So just some of the required elements: every group member must be present for the presentation. So that means when you're presenting, your face should appear at some point in the presentation on the video. It should be approximately 10 to 20 minutes in length. Integrate at least 8 to 10 scholarly sources throughout your presentation, and provide APA formatted in-text citations throughout your slides to help support that information and show where you use scholarly sources. And remember, that might be more in the news story, but it could also be some of the information you're providing in part 2 as well. So that's 8 to 10 across both parts. And then just provide an APA formatted title slide and reference list. And then just making sure you don't sign up for groups until your instructor informs you how many should be in a group, because of course that changes depending on enrollment. And then you'll go back and you'll sign up for your group and join a group pulled from the headlines group presentation. Okay. And so again, this is kind of back to what I was sharing about the recording. Just check whoever's recording, make sure to see if you have access to the cloud or access to the computer. And then only one member from your group needs to submit the presentation under assignment 6. But just make sure you're listing and identifying all group members' names. And you include an accessible link to your PowerPoint and your video. So you want to include both of those things, the PowerPoint and a link to your video. If you have any other resources that you want to upload, you're welcome to include that as well. Okay. All right. So one more major assignment, and it's not a very lengthy assignment. This is just, and this is one of those things that I said I wanted to share now, because you want to work on this throughout the 7 weeks of this class. You don't want to wait till the end. And it's taking the psychological first aid training on the National Child Traumatic Stress Network website. You're going to take the training, you're going to upload your certificates, and you're going to write a reflection paper. Okay. And it's not a lengthy reflection paper. It's more just to show what you've learned and how you can apply it in your work as a school counselor. So you'll go to this website, you'll click on register for the free account, and then you'll click on PFA and SPR at the top. And then you'll choose psychological first aid online to complete the course. Now, at the time I'm recording this video, this is how you do it. However, we know people change their websites pretty frequently. So if for some reason something's different, you can't find it, reach out to your instructor and they'll provide updated guidelines for you. So there are 8 lessons to complete. So there are 7 weeks in this class. So you just might want to consider, okay, maybe I complete 2 in one of the weeks, and then I know I need to complete 1 in every other week, or I complete 2 and 2, and then I have 1 to complete. So I'm done by week 6 to write my reflection paper for week 7. So again, do not wait until the last minute to do it, because you know you always have a lot of things due at the end of the semester, especially if those of you are also an internship. While you're here, you have a lot of paperwork you usually have to turn in and things. So just keep that in mind. And then your reflection paper is just a 3 to 4 page reflection paper summarizing what you learned from the training and how you're going to apply that work or that knowledge in your work as a school counselor and systems change agent. And if you're wondering, well, what is a systems change agent? You will learn about that in this class. Okay. And then just be sure to include at least 1 paragraph for each model. So again, or module, sorry, there are 8 and the paper is only 3 to 4 pages. So it's not going to take a lot for you to get to those page requirements. Okay. So just a paragraph summarization of each module, and then a little bit of a reflection of how you're going to apply it. You can include an APA style title page, reference page, scholarly sources as needed. You may find that you do need sources to kind of help explain how you're going to apply it. You may find you don't, and that's okay. I don't think they're particularly required for this paper. No, they're not. However, it could help. So one of the rubric, if you look at it, training certificates, that's 25 points. So showing that you've completed it is 25 points. Your reflection paper, the depth of content analysis is graded. And so there is part of it that talks about, when required, providing a comprehensive integration of literature. And so I always tell students, Remember, sometimes it's not about just what's required, but it's also about doing your best, right? You want to show what you've learned. And so just kind of keeping that in mind, there might be times that it would make your assignment better if you included scholarly sources, whether they're needed or required or not. So just keep that in mind. And then APA formatting as well. So those are the major assignments for this class. And as you can see, there's essentially an assignment due every week, which is pretty consistent with most of your classes throughout this program. However, some of them are going to take a little bit more coordinating with other individuals. And so that's why it's important that you watch this orientation video and you're prepared and kind of hit the ground running to get those things started. Now, I do want to go over just briefly, you all know how this works, but I want to show you a couple things, just going through one of the weeks. Of course, you have a little bit of the overview, you have the objectives. This is where it's tricky. So at the time that this course was created, we had submitted a K-CREP self-study. And then whenever the person that went back and actually created the course changed the readings. No problem. So all that means is you do not have to purchase this textbook right here, the Kieran King School Crisis Prevention and Intervention. You can, but it is not required. It's just kind of supplemental readings to help with your learning. However, the preferred readings are the required readings for this course. They will be provided to you by clicking on the links, or you will need to find them in the library's website with the information provided. So you don't need to purchase a textbook for this class. And then again, I had referenced this, but if you click on this link, this provides all the APA formatted references for every reading that is listed in this class. So you can look through week 1, here's all the readings already formatted, even with italicization, correct capitalization, all of that. Now there might be a minor error here or there that I wouldn't even catch. So don't worry about it if there is one. So yeah, so and then you have your week 1 activity table like usual. Be sure though, you take the time to work through the lessons. So the lessons are going to be very, 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 very helpful for your dynamic dialogues. Okay. And even your assignment for the risk assessment. So be sure you're taking the time to work through these because they will be very helpful. So with that, I'm trying to see if there's anything else I want to share with you. I think everything else is pretty self-explanatory. You will this week be watching this video and then you'll be taking a quiz. The quiz is directly related to the video that you're just finishing up watching. So, and that quiz will be pass-fail and your discussion is pass-fail. So either you're gonna pass and get your points or you're not. And so for the discussion, it's really just making sure you complete it. For the quiz, you have to get all of the questions right to earn a passing grade. You will have an unlimited amount of attempts on the quiz to get a passing grade and get all of them right. But you just have to make sure you do that because again, it's just really important that you have this information and you're prepared from the beginning of what's expected in the class. Okay. Now, sometimes I know when you get that syllabus and you look at everything that's due, you kind of feel a sense of being overwhelmed and it just seems like a lot, but I promise you it will work out. So every week there's just one thing due and it's not like the videos are just like a 10-minute video right there. So they're nothing super major. And there's plenty of resources located within this class right here to kind of help you do those. So just keep that in mind. And then I'm here to help you and support you, of course, along the way, or whoever your instructor is for this class. So just if you are feeling a little bit overwhelmed right now, take a couple deep breaths. You've made it this far in this program, so you will most certainly finish this class successfully. So with that, everyone, I hope that if I'm your instructor, I look forward to working with you and I hope this is a great class. And then if you have another instructor, I also hope that you really enjoy the class because it is some basics of what you've learned, but to like a really next level. And there's some information that I think will be particularly helpful in your role as a school counselor that you have not yet learned in this program. So with that, have a wonderful rest of your day or your evening, depending on when you're watching this.